Kia ora, boys and girls. I want to read to you today a lovely story called My Grandmother and Me. And this story comes from Iran. And Iran's in, kind of when you look at the world map, it's called a place called the Middle East. You've got Europe, and below that is the Mediterranean Sea, and you go that way on your map towards the east, Middle East. And you've got Israel and Jordan, and then you keep on going east and you get to Iran. And Iran and Iraq are part of an old river basin that some think the Garden of Eden was there. I think the Garden of Eden was a story, but the story came from there. Anyway, My Grandmother and Me. When I was growing up, my grandmother lived with us. Did you ever have that? I followed her everywhere. When she swept, I swept. When she cooked, I cooked. When she prayed, I prayed like her too. And there's Grandma. At dawn, when she woke up for namaz. That is a prayer. Might also give you a hint that they're Islamic. At dawn, when she woke up for namaz, I woke up with her too. Praying at dawn is my favourite, she would say with a smile. Mine too, I'd say with a wider smile. Because only the two of us were up at that time and no one was there to stop me, I would climb up and lie on her back while she prayed. My grandmother never told me to stop or broke out of her prayers. Instead, she sat up gently each time, making sure I didn't fall. There she is. So when you pray, you go down and then you come up and down. After her namaz, we kept watch for the bread delivery boy. He piled the bread high on his bike like a clever acrobatic act. But my grandmother and I had a clever act too. We bought fresh bread every day without leaving our third floor apartment. Guess what they did? They dropped down baskets. And there's the boy with all his bread piled up. We sent our baskets down on ropes. The bread boy placed the bread inside and then we hauled them up. My grandmother's basket was so big I could fit inside it. I would sit inside that basket and pretend to be flying my own plane. And she was waving goodbye to the boy. My doll played too, and then she was pulling her doll along in the bread basket. Once the bread arrived, my doll, my grandmother and I would take some to my friend Annette, who lived next door. Like Annette and me, our grandmas were best friends. They enjoyed each other's company. Every day while we played together, they talked and laughed and drank coffee. There's the grandmas. And there's the girl Annette. Our grandmas knitted blankets together as they watched us play hopscotch in the alley. They donated them to my grandma's mosque and Annette's grandma's church. Annette's grandma was a Christian. From the end of the alley, we would see their heads bent over the blankets. Annette's grandma with her silver hair and my grandma in her favourite chador. The white one with the small purple flowers. It's the one that covers your head. Chador. My grandma had all kinds of chadors. She wore them for different occasions. For parties and mosque, she wore a black one made of fancy crepe fabric. It was heavy, soft and cool to the touch. It looked like a magical cape. My grandma sewed her own cuddles, and I helped. There's grandma sewing, and there's the girl helping. Mostly I helped by draping her cuddles on the table to build my rocket ship. Or tying her cador around my neck so I could fly from moon to planet. I was a super astro explorer. My grandma was always waiting for me back at the base camp with cookies. We ate together while I told her about my space adventures. During the holy month of Ramadan, my grandma did not eat from dawn to dusk. When she woke up to eat before sunrise, I woke up to eat too. "You're too young to fast just yet," she said to me. I ate with my grandma anyway. Then I ate as usual during the day, and after dusk, at iftar time, I ate with her again. One time when I was a little older and finally fasted with her in the middle of the night, in the middle of the dark and somber night, I wore the kador she made me and we walked together to the mosque. And she's down there, praying down there with her grandma. Inside the light shone bright and no one was quiet or somber. People laughed and ate and talked until it was time for prayers. My grandma prayed for Annette's grandma. She prayed that Annette's grandma would go to heaven. After the prayers, there was some tea and milk and dates and sherbet. You know what sherbet is? And cookies. Sherbet's sort of sugary stuff with a bit of a tingle in it. In the mosque's kitchen, volunteers cooked rice and stew in large copper pots. Some ate at the mosque while others took the food home. We filled the dish, and on the way home my grandma left it for a man sleeping on the pavement. As we walked away, she said a prayer for the sick and poor people in the world. There they are at the mosque. The next morning when I saw Annette, she whispered a secret to me. "Last night at church, my grandma prayed for your grandma to go to heaven." My eyes widened. My grandma did the same thing at the mosque. Annette and I looked together. Our grandmas were talking and drinking coffee together. I could imagine them knitting and laughing together anywhere, on Earth, on Mars, or in heaven. In this big universe full of many moons, I have travelled and seen many wonders. But I've never loved anything or anyone the way I loved my grandma. She was kind, generous, and full of love, and I just want to be like her. It's a lovely story, isn't it? It's a story about the girl and her grandma. It's also a story about the friendship, these two grandmas across the lines of ethnic and, religious divides. Yeah, friendship. It's really valuable and precious. May God bless you with friends.